It's the 16th day of June 2024. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana Durnford, and I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org, and you can call in at 709-589-4406. So we got a dead worker at Fukushima. We're going to cover that story specifically. I'm almost ashamed to be a human every time I read anything about nuclear. I was out researching the weekend on the quad. I found 5 birds. Thanks, Fukushima. You're my hero. Only 7% of the area in Fukushima residents return project. So 93% of the area is not safe to, or they so-called can't decontaminate. So this was last week. Somehow we missed that story. So less than 10%. I'm just going to use this story to highlight the madness of the other story. We're going to cover this in more detail tomorrow night. There's actually 42 screen captures of this story to get through tomorrow night. 10% of the area under consideration for facilitating the return of victims. Why would you return to a nuclear wasteland in a high radiation zone? Have been deemed eligible for decontamination work under a new program. And give you context of this, a sign indicating traffic regulations at a highly radioactive, difficult to return zone. Highly radioactive and difficult to return are not words that's supposed to go together. In Nami, which is 7 kilometers away. May the 23rd, 2024. Highly radioactive, difficult. So how can you have highly radioactive nuclear wastelands? You can call it difficult to return all you want, but that's only because you're complacent, or you're actually a scumbag, or you're just incapable of comprehending the significance of a nuclear accident. That's fine too. But how can you have an area 7 kilometers away, which is Nami, that is highly radioactive, but the nuclear meltdown site itself is no radiation? How does that work? Anybody know? Can somebody explain to me how that friggin' works? Just another reason I hate nuclear. That's every story we get from nuclear is another positive reason they hate their guts with everything in your body. And that's terrifying. The contempt they have for you and everybody else in the species is complete. It's utter contempt. The only thing that matters in their world is them and nuclear. Nothing else matters. If they kill everything, that's fine as long as they survive. And that's exactly what we see happening. Workers confirmed dead after collapsing at Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant. Confirmed dead. Now, every story is word for word. There was no changing in the narratives. There's no updates. There's no nothing. It's just that one story showed up in a few medias. None of the regular suspects. Just a few medias. And everything is verbatim. Let me step backwards for a second, because normally when a nuclear worker gets sick, they equate him with Freddy Krueger, right? So that a worker from a subsidy, which means they're homeless or destitute or the victim of society or the immigrant who don't speak the language. They're not a subsidiary of TEPCO. They're a fly-by-night contractor that's shanghaiing the homeless and the destitute, right? Was found collapsed at a rest area. There is no rest areas in Fukushima nuclear meltdown sites. It's the most bizarre statement imaginable, at a rest area. At the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disease factory, and later confirmed dead, was found collapsed No, they were found dead. There is no rest areas. The male worker and employee, there is no safe areas on the site. There's no safe areas in Nami, 7 kilometers away, for goodness sakes. How can it be safe at the nuclear meltdown site itself? How does that work? He was in his 50s, was found collapsed in a state of cardiopulmonary arrest on Thursday. His heart stopped, his breathing stopped. He dropped dead from massive radiation, right? While engaged in decommissioning work at the nuclear disease factory. Decommissioning work. Zipperhead said Friday. According to Zipperhead/TEPCO, the man had been working in the plant's yellow zone, which requires protective clothing. Clothing can't protect you at a nuclear meltdown site. Notice how they don't say he's a nuclear academic or nuclear scientist or nuclear this or nuclear that or from a nuclear company. Every facet of their narrative is so vague. During backfilling work in an area that has been excavated for you don't excavate an area around a nuclear meltdown for water survey. What the hell are you talking about? That's simply got nothing to do with what goes on there. This is simply has nothing to do. During backfilling work in an area, which means they were excavating somewhere close to reactor 2, which happens to be right alongside of reactor 1, which melted down, and reactor 3 on the other side, which melted down, and reactor 4 next to that, which melted down. And behind it is the common spent fuel pool, which is melted down, had 6,375 assemblies. Each one weighs 1,800 pounds. This was pictures that were released in 2021 on the 10th year. And so why is the common spent fuel pool, which is just literally a stone's throw away from reactor 2, completely pixelated out? The man has no physical abnormalities prior to work, and he was not exposed to radiation. What are you talking about? You can't get on the prefecture without being exposed to radiation. You got to drive through a nuclear wasteland to get to the nuclear wasteland. And what do you call him worker? Why don't you give him some dignity? What was specifically, who is he? And they don't want to talk about that because they respect the family. It stated that it would refrain from answering questions regarding the cause of death due to the family's wishes. The family doesn't want to know why he died. Really? These are the lowest forms of life we've ever come across. You can't find anything out there on the planet as evil as the nuclear industry, the people in the nuclear industry. You really can't. You can't find anything out there that is that disconnected from being a human. It would refrain from answering questions regarding the cause of death due to the family's wishes, but adding that it's a low possibility that the death was caused by work at a nuclear. It's a low possibility that you're working right alongside of multiple nuclear meltdowns with 8 fuel pools melted down, and you're not going to even suggest that might have had some of the attributes. My God, man. What kind of disconnect planet do you come from? What kind of weirdo are you to suggest something like that? And every story was the exact same words. We should be thankful that we even heard the story. Extreme increase in mortality by heart attacks, by cardiopulmonary heart stoppage. In Fukushima, the death rates might give the creeps to some people. In a single month, there was 12,700 people like the same worker who dropped dead, just like that worker. The death rates might give the creeps to some people. What part about that is it that we can continue to live in denial over? How does that even work, I wonder? How does the nuclear academics, nuclear scientists, pro-nuclear community look in a mirror without punching it? How does that work? How did you look anybody in the face, even a stranger on the side of the road, without tossing himself in front of a transport truck? How does that work? They're the most vile people you'll ever come across. And look at the media. The media, worker found dead at Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant. There is no workers at Fukushima plant doing this. This is a factory. This got nothing to do with a nuclear site. Why do you get that picture there for? Why would they put that picture there when it's got nothing to do with a nuclear site in order to lull people into complacency and not comprehend? How come none of the stories got pictures of the reactors? Or Fukushima or anything else? How come? Is it really that difficult to find a picture? I know we downloaded thousands from TEPCO's site. Thousands. And all the media couldn't find a single picture of Fukushima. How does that work? I can't comprehend that disconnect. Worker found dead at Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant. A worker from his subsidiary. What kind of worker? Was he nuclear academic, a nuclear scientist? Was he from a nuclear corporation? Or was he from a fly-by-night, homeless, and the destitute, the victims of society? The only people we know about that goes there. That's the people that are working there, right? Nuclear science. We've never seen a nuclear scientist. Here I am at Fukushima. How come? You know, it's only 13 years, I get that. But you would think in 13 years, you get at least one scientist come out and try to bullshit us, wouldn't you? Found collapsed at a rest area. Every story is the exact same thing. Well engaged in decommissioning work. So what's really interesting about the story? And they say he was in the yellow zone, which requires protective clothing. And so the whole stories are about image for them, about perpetrating the propaganda. That's the only reason the story even exists is so, he was in an area where you're going to wear protective clothing. But it couldn't have been caused by it. There's no radiation. It's a nuclear meltdown. There can't be any nuclear radiation there. They're decommissioning nuclear meltdown, but there can't be any danger. During backfilling work in an area that had been excavated for a water quality survey. What the hell are you talking about? There's no announcements. There's no context. We've never heard of this description before. They don't dig up around nuclear meltdowns to check water, okay? It doesn't work that way. Near the plant's number 2 disease factory. And by the way, Unit 2 was a highly radioactive fuel. Potential global catastrophe from Fukushima Unit 2. But if you're there, there's no danger. There's a global catastrophe danger, but if you're there, there's no danger. Everything is perfectly fine, right? How do you get to be that kind of a degenerate? How can you work for nuclear and not hate yourself? How does that even work? Do you just get rid of every mirror in your house? Tint every window so you can't see your reflection? Is that how that works? Reactor 3 blew up, for starters, right alongside of, Reactor 2. And that's the fuel pool in the reactor core falling back down to Earth. The explosion was felt 25 miles away. The whole area was plowed over. So if you're excavating, you're digging up fuel assemblies that have melted down in that area. And the only way you can dig it up, because that site has been covered in cement, covered in large 18-foot sheets of 1-inch thick steel. Right, they're 18 by 12 feet sheets that are laid down with a crane, a remote-controlled crane. And then on top of that, then they put pavement, and then they put more cement, and then they put more steel plates, and then they put more pavement and more cement and then more pavement. So the homeless can get in there and last for a couple of days. That's what they got done to that whole area. So what are you talking about? You're excavating alongside the reactor 2, which are multiple reactors are gone. China syndrome right there. Detonated through fuel assemblies and fuel rods and fuel pools all over the site. But it's a low possibility that it was caused by radiation. You're such vile, hateful, despicable, disgusting, parasitic people in the nuclear industry. Calling you people is quite the stretch, isn't it? And then saying that the family didn't want you to discuss what caused their death. But don't worry, it's a low possibility. But the family doesn't want you discussing it. But don't worry, it's a low possibility it was caused by work. But the family doesn't want you discussing it because you respect the family. He wasn't exposed to radiation, but the family didn't want you discussing the death. He said there's a low probability it caused work. But you don't want them discussing, the family doesn't want you discussing the death. And why do you discuss the death and at the same time put in a statement saying, refrain from answering questions regarding the cause of death due to the family's wishes? It's an industrial accident, so there has to be a public admittance of what happened. That's the way it works. Worker found dead at the Fukushima plant. What kind of worker? Did he have a degree? Does he have a family? Is he considered human when he's considered expendable too? Does it work that way? And why show this? This got nothing to do with number 2. Why call yourself journalist? How do you look in your friends and families and call yourself a journalist? How does that even work? Right? And near the number 2 reactor. For a water quality survey at a nuclear meltdown. You're excavating right alongside a nuclear meltdown. You're excavating right alongside of a nuclear meltdown. Well, let's just try to flush this out because I'm very upset about this story and I apologize. I know that's wrong. I'm not allowed to be upset. We all should be upset. First off, when they show you pictures like this, when they show you pictures like that at this place and they're showing you pictures like that in the media, when it actually looks like that there, that's got nothing to do with the site. Where you got the death rates might give the creeps to somebody, but it was at a low probability the death was caused by their work. But yet, that's all these things do is cause death, right? I'm just completely lost of this disconnect. Let me take you down the headlines of this nightmare. Doomsday-like radiation release if fire in the pool at Unit 4 would be a global catastrophe. Well, that's Reactor 4. Does it look like that had a fire? Well, it's not actual Reactor 4. That doesn't exist anymore. There's just this little stump. There is no reactor. The reactor cores and the fuel pools were at the top of the building. There is no building. I know what you're saying. Dana, the media said they were at the building getting fuel out of the pool.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
So how many people thinks that she's 140 feet above this stump in thin air in that building? Because that's what she's saying she is, like many of them done in 2013. But let's talk about, there's a low probability that the radiation caused any issues. Low probability. Well, first off, the majority of people there can't even read. And that's why he said he was a subsidiary company, right? Or they're underage. Does that sound like nuclear scientists to you, nuclear academics, anybody that knows something about nuclear? Five workers at one point had got a fatal dose. Oh, it's like a banana, Dana, a potato chip, and walking in the sunshine. Stop lying, Dana. After working in affected areas, this is outside the plant, 4 workers have died, but if you're right alongside of multiple nuclear meltdowns, you're totally safe. Do you get me? Do you feel me? You get where I'm coming from? Do you understand why I'm a little skeptical? By the way, the cesium immediately damages the hearts. No, but yeah, it's a nuclear meltdown, but he had a paper suit on, Dana. He was fine. It was paper suit, nuclear meltdown paper suit. You know, like, if it was a 6-foot thick lead paper suit and you're working by a nuclear meltdown, it's still not going to protect you. Over 1,000 workers, internal radiation at 10,000 counts per minute. But no, the worker today, he's absolutely nothing to do with radiation. He was in a rest area, Dana. He's for a subsidy company, and the company TEPCO doesn't want to talk about it because of the family's wishes. They don't want him to just talk about anything. Another Fukushima cleanup worker dies. Found collapsed. Geez, that sounds familiar, don't it? Kind of sounds like the story from yesterday, doesn't it? There's 7 people dropped dead on a single friggin' street in 1 year. But there's no probability, Dan, that there was any adverse effects from somebody working, not nuclear academics or scientists, but from the homeless to destitute, which is what that person is. And the family didn't want to discuss it because there is no family. They're homeless or destitute. They don't know who the family is. They don't care. They just care about themselves. They don't care about you. They don't care about anything. There was 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. 800, almost 1 million extra cancers. Not everybody was diagnosed. Not everybody got health care. Cancer ain't the only thing. There's endless diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. And I wasn't going to do a show, and then I'm burnt out. I haven't stopped all weekend. We were surveying. I'm busted up. I'm covered in bruises. Like, I'm covered. And I mean, like, big bruises. I can barely stand up in the mornings. I still get out and do the best I can every single day because of this nightmare. This nightmare that this Fukushima has done to our planet. This disaster. This incredible... Every facet of the nuclear industry, is, by the way, is a nightmare. Isn't it? Is there a single thing in the nuclear industry that's not a friggin' nightmare? Now, humor me. Oh, I got something. I got something good. Something we haven't covered for a while. Which is crazy because we cover a lot. We're not amateurs. We've been at this since a very long time. You know, when you see a picture of a nuclear, that's reactor 1 detonating, by the way, right alongside, reactor 2. Don't forget about reactor 2. All of the stricken reactors and the spent fuel pools contained plutonium. Well, 4, reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4 fuel pools are gone. Reactor 3 and reactor 4 clearly, you don't have to be any kind of an engineer to comprehend they're gone because they're at the very top of the buildings. There is no buildings. And reactor 3, of course, is the plutonium mixed oxide meltdown. The top of each of these buildings were 2 fuel pools with around 16 reactor cores in the 2 buildings, 8 in each building. There's 4 fuel pools in those 2 buildings are gone. Each fuel pool is around, like we downplay it. We say there's 4 reactor cores in each fuel pool. There's clearly a lot more than that. They don't have a repository anywhere on the planet. There's nowhere else to store it. That was the intentions of these buildings having the fuel pools at the stupidest place at the top of the buildings. And you built it. We know you got a 3,000-year history of massive tsunamis, and you're on the ring of fire where you have 1,000 massive earthquakes every year. Just waiting for it to go boo. Right? How can you make this stuff up, see? How does that even work? So let's just talk about it. What happened there? What was going on? Each reactor holds 3,450 spent fuel assemblies. We'd be like Chernobyl on steroids. Well, there's 4 buildings where the fuel pools caught fire. And 4 reactor cores that melted down. And for some reason, they refused to acknowledge reactor 4. How can you pretend that didn't melt down? A kind of sick and twisted person would suggest that didn't melt down. What kind of moron would put that over everybody's health and the future of the 8 million species that are now decimated? Within 1 day, a complete meltdown and melt-through occurred. There was no way the government didn't know it. And you're excavating right alongside of multiple China syndromes. It's got nothing to do with the death of a worker, though. Welcome to batshit land, if this is your first time here. Japan Times, the walls are cracked below the ground of Fukushima reactor buildings. So why would you wouldn't excavate there, check quality, water quality. That's the very, 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 very last thing you're going to do at that site. If you got a list of 1 million things, that is the last one. Excavating alongside of it's, and if you do, there's something else going on, right? Why would you be excavating right alongside of multiple nuclear meltdowns? And suggest that you're checking water quality? Come up and say that to my face sometime. That's what you were doing. See how that works out for you. I'll set you straight so quick, you won't have a fucking clue what happened to you. You won't need another haircut because I pull every hair to your fucking head when I caught hold of you. LA Times, speculation a supercritical fission event occurred at Fukushima reactor, irradiating the plutonium. Yeah, but it got nothing to do with the death of the workers. Because it's like a banana and a potato chip, Dana. The explosion was so massive, investigators found fuel rod fragments a mile away. China syndrome might have just happened at Fukushima. And all of these are true. And all of them are downplaying it. It's infinitely worse than this. Government paper shows a meltdown of Fukushima was predicted on the day of the quake. Government reports suggest a situation far worse than meltdown. It is the worst possible in a nuclear accident. The fuel pools have caught on fire. a melt out. All fuel is melted through, much of it into the containment vessel, so where's the rest? Like everything's gone straight through the containment vessel because it's 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. We don't have anything contained at, see? And because you don't need oxygen, and it cannibalizes and atomizes and aerosols and ionizes and radiates everything it comes into contact with, it's a perpetual disease factory for everything with replicating cells on the entire planet. The worst case scenario is the China syndrome. No, China syndrome. Everything is a worst case scenario. You're talking about 2 fuel pools at the top of each of the buildings with decades of reactor cores are gone also. Chernobyl, for instance, was a brand new reactor. It was graphite. It was a brutal event. And still is today and will be forever. But it's got nothing whatsoever. There's no comparison to Fukushima. You can't compare. And Chernobyl is brutal, but Fukushima is holy goodness. It's insane. Each of the reactors are infinitely bigger. They were pure uranium, pure plutonium. At the top of the buildings, there's at least 8 reactor cores. They're gone on each building. And Chernobyl was just a new reactor, no fuel pools. It was graphite. These things are completely disintegrated. And Chernobyl was brutal, but it's no Fukushima. And Fukushima is, let's put it this way, the inventories at Fukushima is equal to around 4,000 Chernobyls because it's pure uranium, pure plutonium versus graphite from Chernobyl, see? These were pure uranium, pure plutonium with decades of reactor cores and 2 fuel pools at the top of each of the buildings, all gone from 4 buildings. Each of these reactor cores, by the way, is worse than all nuclear meltdowns in history combined. Each of the reactor cores on their own is equal to 100 Chernobyls because they're pure uranium, pure plutonium. Excuse me. I'm furious. Ah! Hear me roar. Ah! More from the lead investigator. The nuclear lava melted the bottom of the containment vessel. The buildings are disintegrated. They detonated. It didn't melt the bottom of the containment vessel. It went pooey. And we killed off most of the species in just 13 years. All the whales and all the birds and all the seals and sea lions and all showing up emaciated everywhere. Won't be long now before they say all the trees are dying from the bird flu, right? Oh, the bird flu is killing all the trees. Japan government now raises the possibility the fuel has to melt through at all 3 reactors. There's 4. Clearly, reactor 4, because they won't count this building. That's not counted. Does that look like it's okay to anybody? If this is your first time here and you're looking at the first time you've seen that picture, does that look okay to you? Huh? Call me, 709-589-4406. If you think the building is okay, give me a call. I'd like to hear from somebody that's stupid. Take your time. I know you got to go find somebody who can dial a phone because you can't. The very severe accident. Severe! Catastrophic to everything with replicating cells on the entire planet. Oh, it's severe. Just published study. Plutonium being found away from Fukushima from the nuclear fuel fragments blown out after the explosions. What explosions? Officially, that never exploded. As of last year, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, who for 11 years said it exploded, but last year decided to say, well, there is no meltdown. Nothing got out. The official story is nothing got out of these buildings. I think that any industry that would make a statement like that everybody in the industry should have to pay for that statement. I think everybody should have to go down there and work on them buildings till they drop dead, which won't take very long, just a couple of minutes. This is not people you want to have on your planet, these types of people. People that say that never happened shouldn't be on this planet. They have no right to be taking up space on this planet. Unprecedented phenomenon from using salt water in the Fukushima reactors, forming new uranium compounds able to travel long distances like carbon buckyballs. This was a sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyball study, where the sulfur is liberated by the enormous temperatures, because they're spraying salt water in the reactor for over a month, because that was all show and tell, by the way. The reactors were long gone. That was to lull people into complacency worldwide. But what happened was they're spraying the salt water, as they knew from nuclear detonations, the nuclear war they call testing, which is the same bombs, the same radioactive fallout. And they call it, oh no, it's a testing there. Well, if I test a nuclear weapon, or I use a nuclear weapon in a war, what's the difference in the radioactive fallout? Oh, that's right, there's no difference. So nuclear testing is a nuclear war, yeah? And every facet of this industry screams, stop these people now. Somebody stop these people right now. Every facet of the entire legacy of this industry screams, stop these people right now. Somebody stop these monsters immediately. And for 80 years, these despicable, worthless examples of humans have done everything they can to destroy everything and everybody's future and every species. And then they have legions and legions and legions of useful idiots out there apologizing and telling blatant lies, actually, that it's like a banana or like a potato chip or like walking in sunshine or like flying on an airplane for 80 years, generation after generation and generation of these zombies coming out to manipulate you, getting incredible educations to get jobs that you know exist, to go out in the media and lie to you. We don't have anything like it on the planet that can compare to it. We don't have another example where we say, well, they do it over there and they do it over here. This nuclear industry could never exist without just thousands of useful degenerate idiots. They're the worst of the worst too, right? Because they go and get the education to tell the lie. Probably because their parents or their aunts or their uncles or their grandparents had that job. And all that inbreeding has created this industry of just disconnect. No concept of what the human experience is supposed to be about. And the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs caused by the salt water is liberated, produces these bucky-type balls, these spherical balls, which are able to ingest the uranium, the plutonium, the curium, the biggest byproduct of the radiative fuel rods. Not cesium, not iodine. The curium is the biggest byproduct. And curium, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for the plutonium, for goodness sakes. Core on the floor in NRC chairman. There's about 1,000 kinds of radioactive material released from the nuclear meltdowns. There is no containment. Triple meltdown. Not great, but not apocalyptic news du jour. Times.com. They got all the media out there crawling over each other to lie to you. Crawling over each other to destroy your ability to have a rational conversation. Every university out there with endless professors ready to come out and stab you in the back on the drop of a hat for the nuclear industry. Every university will not hesitate to stab you in the back for the nuclear industry. That's their job, after all, is to rape the children in the school and the universities. And then when needs arise, they got to come out and lie to you and tell you it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine, right? That's how it works. We've been covering it for years and years and years. That's exactly how it works. Your universities are weapons. against everything and everybody on this friggin' planet. That's what they are. And look at the picture that they put there. It got nothing to do with Fukushima. Workers, see? So they put up a worker, like a laborer. That's not a nuclear scientist. These are not nuclear academics. They know what they were doing when they put out that story, didn't they? And there's no credible news media came out with that story. There was no credible media out there would touch the story. How interesting is that? They lied so much they can't look in the mirror anymore, I guess. Or all the mirrors have broken in their houses. I have zero patience for these things that look like a human, but they got nothing to do with humans. There's not a nuclear scientist on the planet that has the attribute of a human. And if you asked them were they human, they would laugh at you and they would look around because they know they're not human. They work for the nuclear industry. You can't be a human and work for the nuclear industry. Right? So in front of the set, you got 1 billion atoms a kilogram. You got to multiply by 66.6 to get a square meter. That's pretty reassuring, isn't it? You get thousands and thousands dying of heart attacks in a single month. But if a worker dies of a heart attack at the nuclear meltdown site, it's got nothing to do with the meltdowns, Dana. Fukushima workers had heart attack while working on reactor number 1. Oh, that's right alongside of reactor 2, isn't it? Let's forget about all this stuff. Radiation around Fukushima near levels where humans vomit uncontrollably and the hair can be stripped from the body. But it got nothing to do with Fukushima. It's just fear-mongering. Just radiophobia. 7 people died on a shopping street in a single year. Have you got a shopping street in your community, your city, your country, anywhere else on the planet where 7 people dropped dead in a single year? Google it and tell me if there's somewhere else on the planet where 7 people, 8 people, 5 people, 3 people dropped dead in a single year on a street. Because you're not going to find that story anywhere else, are you? But right at the nuclear meltdown site itself, no, it got nothing to do with radiation. The ambulance comes to Fukushima at least 10 times a day. Well, yeah, it got nothing to do with radiation. Another Fukushima cleanup worker dies, found collapsed after removing radioactive soil, but it got nothing to do with radiation. All of these are just coincidence, Dana. You're drawing lines that don't exist, Dana. Top Tokyo doctor dealing with the nuclear workers, they can't even read. But TEPCO doesn't want to discuss how they died because you got the family's wishes, Dana. That'll be the first family in history that didn't wish to have the conversation. You know that? And so the media that came out with that story and regurgitated that narrative are the most worthless humans imaginable. They're the most despicable humans imaginable. A journalist would come out and put their name on those stories and say that there's nothing to do with the nuclear industry whatsoever, are the worst humans imaginable. Underage people are employed. Does that sound like nuclear scientists to anybody? I can't show you a single headline on nuclear scientists at Fukushima. I don't know, it's only been 13 years. We've been at it the whole time. I gathered up, what? How much? 10 terabytes or something? I can't show you a single headline of a nuclear scientist at Fukushima. Cesium-137 immediately damages the heart muscle, not slow acting. Guess what happens with plutonium, uranium, and curium? It's way worse, way quicker. Cesium is brutal, but that's meant to lull you into complacency. Fireman dies. There's actually 300 police officers who were guarding the ghost towns, stop people from going into the ghost towns and bringing out radioactive items, that dropped dead. And dropped dead all over that place. That could be radiation. But at the nuclear site itself, that can't be radiation. He probably ate a bad banana, maybe, Dana. That's probably why he got sick and died. Or potato chips. He had old potato chips, Dana. It can't be radiation. It's a nuclear meltdown. There can't be any radiation there. 40% of Fukushima visitors show internal exposure to radiation. Wrap your mind around the statements. News agency, after working in the affected area, 4 workers have died. Heart attacks and leukemia. Oh, it's got nothing to do with Fukushima, Dana. 5 Fukushima workers received fatal doses of radiation. Nothing to do with Fukushima. Worker dies while decontaminating Fukushima. Another worker dies, had been preparing to cover for reactor 3. You ain't got no cover for reactor 3. What year is that? 2013. You know what reactor 3 looked like in 2013? I actually got a picture right here. Let me show it to you. Ain't she pretty? Look at her over there. That's the Medusa over there. %40 of Fukushima visitors show internal exposures to radiation. 40%. Government is looking for kamikaze decontamination workers for Fukushima prefecture. Is that what it was? Was that homeless person that died during the weekend a kamikaze decontamination worker? %51% of the kids are contaminated with cesium at the Fukushima hospital. High-level gamma rays on their clothing. Children with 11 little atoms. With 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, anthropogenic man-made atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see it. 11 of them, children start to see heart problems. I'm just furious that the media didn't come out. We didn't get any context whatsoever. So the family didn't want them discussing it, so they respect the TEPCO. The Japanese government, nuclear industry respects the family. Do you got any idea what kind of lie that one is? Every facet of nuclear screams, put these people on death row. Everything in nuclear industry. So 95,000 counts per minute and up to another 60,000 counts per minute in beta. 25 kilometers from the nuclear meltdown site. But if you're right at ground zero, there's no adverse side effects, is it? Really? Yippee-ki-yay, right? There was 300 police officers died, lots of them from kidney failure at the nuclear communities that are sectioned off or abandoned. But if you work at the ground zero, everything's hunky-dory. What a wonderful world we live in. 5 hospitals refuse to provide medical care to the children. We can't be seen by doctors. It's not right. The doctor said it'll be confusing if our results is different than the Fukushima Medical University. And the Fukushima Medical University was the ones that set the standards for everybody. That had a secret agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency not to put out any kind of distressing news whatsoever. Fukushima medical care provider, hospital president said people would be healthier after man-made radiation exposure from triple meltdowns. There's no arguments allowed. Imagine how messed up that the president of a hospital is telling the victims that they'll be healthier if they get irradiated. Imagine that kind of madness. And that's not a crime. It's not a crime to poison you, right? It's not illegal to poison you either. Only the regulatory agency has the authority. Congress doesn't have the authority to make it illegal. The Senate doesn't have the authority. Parliament in Canada, United Kingdom doesn't have the authority. The Diet in Japan doesn't have the authority to make it illegal. They can make it illegal for, and they do, for 3,000 chemicals to poison you. But they don't have the authority to make it illegal for anthropogenic man-made radiation to poison you. Only the regulatory commissions in each, and they're there by administration. So even if they did make it illegal, the next administration could remove that and say it's not illegal again. See? Not that they would do it. They hate you. Everything in that nuclear industry hates your guts. There's nobody in the nuclear industry that doesn't hate your guts and loved ones and your children and your friends and your family's guts. There's not a university nuclear scientist, nuclear professor that doesn't hate your guts. You can pretend I'm wrong, but that's all you're doing. You're delusional if you think that's not true. You're disconnected from reality if you think that's not true. You're a liar if you think that's not true. You're lying to yourself and you know it. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 atoms a kilogram of just cesium. Imagine being at the nuclear meltdown site with multiple reactor cores detonated all over the site, with 8 fuel pools detonated all over the site. You got any idea how stupid this industry actually is? You got any idea how much harm, how danger you're in, how far down the hole we are? How late it is? The implications of what we're talking about when I'm showing you the documentation. You can deny some of these, but you can't deny every one of them I showed you tonight. I guess you could if you're pro-nuclear. Because you'd be pretty stupid to be pro-nuclear. 1 million atoms per kilogram at a school that's 70 kilometers away. But if you're at ground zero, everything is hunky-dory. At some point, 1 billion people is going to be looking for heads to roll. Or 2 billion or 5 billion people are going to want this industry put to bed permanently. That's coming, no matter what. That is coming. German T interview on Fukushima. More and more people live in highly contaminated places dying of heart disease because of the cesium. Oh, you sure it's not the curium? Sure it's not the plutonium? You sure it's not the uranium or the americium or the neptunium or the strontium? You sure it's just the cesium, are you? You disgusting maggot for the nuclear industry. Tokyo Hospital posts a sign at the entrance. We do not serve tests for radiation exposure or treatment of radiation. Is that the hospital where they sent the dead person to, I wonder? Like, how much do you need? How much evidence do you need? Because I got it. I actually got it. I got enough information that you cannot win this conversation. You cannot be pro-nuclear in this conversation and win the debate. Because I got the facts. I only talk about the facts. I only talk about the documentation. I only talk about the evidence. I don't live in denial. that reactor 4 didn't get destroyed. That's denial. And so at what point do we accept that that got destroyed? At what point? What are we waiting for? Why don't we acknowledge that reactor 4 is gone? I'll show you a picture that I've been shown for 10 years. Videos, actually. Playing a video and picture, showing a picture for 10 years, and I'm the only person doing it. 10 years later. I've been on multiple sites. I've been barred at all Greenpeace on Twitter, which is now known as X. Every Greenpeace worldwide has blocked my Twitter account because I tweet this picture and ask them to retweet it, so they just blocked me. How come? Am I a bad person for saying that they're not at the top of reactor 4? Am I? Because apparently I must be a bad person for saying they're not at the top of that building. I'm like a demon for not saying, for suggesting they're not at the top of the building. Let me play the video. Let me play that video. Because it's fascinating, isn't it? Let me get my big head out of the way. It's a very short video. I've been playing this video for 10 years. But I'm the only person on the planet that plays this video. How come?
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
And so, give me a call if you think that they're at the top of the building. I'm not going to be hard on you. I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to be mean. I just want to hear somebody that fucking stupid. I want to hear how you're talking it. International Atomic Energy Agency admitted on June 2nd, 2011, there is no such thing as a safe level of radiation. And that the standards are based on natural, not man-made. So the International Atomic Energy Agency, which shouldn't exist, is United Nations, right? They got UNSCLEAR and IRPA and the IPRC. They got all kinds of subsidies, the International Atomic Energy Agency. And their job is to confuse you. Their job is to come out and lie to you, and manipulate you, and deceive you, and drive you insane. So you can't come up, you can't rationalize anything. And they're professionals. They're really good at it. They know the job existed. They went and got incredible educations to get the jobs to come out and lie to you. You have any idea how freaking evil that creature right there, Rafael Grossi, actually is? He's saying that the building didn't melt down, that the people are at the top of the building. He's saying that never happened. He's saying nothing got out. So, children's thyroid glands at 35,000 microsieverts, multiply that by 750 atoms to get the bare minimum of what we're talking about. So 35,000 by 750 atoms, and each atom is under siege with white blood cells for the rest of their lives. We call it leukemia because they're making more white blood cells than they are red blood cells, right? There's so much evil, like 6 in 10 Fukushima children got diabetes, and the head of the Tokyo area medical clinic said we're expecting diabetes in children from the Fukushima radiation. The head of the Tokyo medical clinic, Tokyo, metropolitan Tokyo, 36 million people. No, not true. Children with 11 atoms a kilogram start to see heart problems. Wait a second. The food was banned in 55 countries, in 14 prefectures for a decade. But ground zero, at the nuclear meltdown, there's no radiation whatsoever. Nothing can cause a worker to die, right? It's impossible to keep up with the evilness of this industry. You know, pre-Fukushima was 1 in 2 per million children would get a thyroid tumor. Now there's 358,000 out of a million. Is that caused by bananas and potato chips or something? Am I missing something? La 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 crazy Dana. Hey, go ahead and look up Helen Calicut. She'll tell you the truth. She was in a radio interview, many radio interviews, where she claimed the building looks like the one to the left, not the one to the right. She was asked, does it look like the one to the left or the one to the right? And you know what she said? Reactor 4. I put the 2 pictures. Now, the original footage is the top center. You got to hear this to appreciate the insanity. She wrote 14 anti-nuclear books, but her job is to lull you into complacency. That's her job.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
She's saying it looks like the building over there doesn't look like this. Very tidy Japanese, are they? And there's no one to hold her accountable. That radio interview didn't hold her accountable. They asked the question. Thank goodness someone done it. This is Fairwind, Arnie Gunnarsson. He made the racks for the assemblies for the fuel pools for 71 reactors, identical reactors in the United States. And I put his video in the fuel pool of Reactor 4.
The Unit 4 was damaged twice. It was damaged by all of the earthquakes that occurred, and it was also damaged by a series of explosions over the first week or 2 of the accident. So the building is structurally weakened.
Does that look structurally weakened and damaged?
Now, Tokyo Electric's acknowledged that. They went in.
So now here's Arnie Gunnarsson, who made the assemblies for the fuel pools, clearly knew that they were gone right away, is claiming that TEPCO went in and put structural supports under the fuel pool.
In May and June of last year.
Now, the fuel pool is at the very top of the building that doesn't exist anymore. That's 1/4 of the building you're looking at.
This is more than a year ago, and put an enormous number of extra structural supports directly under the fuel pool to keep the bottom of the pool from breaking through.
Somebody should put Arnie Gunnarsson in the bottom of the fuel pool to stop it from breaking through. We should put him in a 50,000-pound cast and drop him off a container ship is what they should do. It's a disaster affecting all residents of Japan, except for those at the nuclear meltdowns. If you're at the nuclear meltdowns, everything's perfectly safe. If you're everywhere else on the planet, that's too bad for you and the 8 million species. But if you're at the nuclear meltdown, everything is perfect. This was a study by Dr. Raymond Gilmedy from Loveless Respiratory Research Institute, which is the Navy, the United States Navy. saying that the effects of the radiation exposure are expected to be beneficial. Loveless Respiratory Research Institute. There's so much evil out there. Well, the majority of it is evil. 99.99999999999% of the people that talked about Fukushima were pro-nuclear lawyers. I would never ever imagine there could be that much evil. Now I assume, because we have the evidence, that it's always been that way, which is just heartbreaking. There's so many terrorists out there, you just can't keep up with it, right? Like Stinkfoot, Operation Long Jump, and the shoe bomber, they were actually twins at birth, right? Fukushima has humanity on the brink of a possible worldwide nuclear holocaust, and the effects on our health are incomprehensible, celebrated physician. But if you're at the nuclear meltdown site, it's just like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine. You see my problem? You see why I can't rationalize their version? I think it's just inconceivable that the media would come out and say that they're excavating alongside of reactor 2, which is right alongside of reactor 4 and reactor 3 and reactor 1. And right behind that is the common spent fuel pool, which we know melted down. They're on the same street at the same height, and the tsunami ran through all of them. But their fuel pool is ground level, whereas these were 180 feet up in the air. France says Japan has lost control. The French will leave the country. But if you go to the nuclear meltdown, that's the safest spot to be, is it? Nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. Over and over and over again, we hear the word heart diseases and strokes, don't we? How many times have I showed you that stuff tonight? 25 times or something? But the guys, the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society working right alongside the nuclear meltdowns, no, it can't happen to them. It can only happen to everybody else. Columnist, the truth must be told. Fukushima is a major global threat to all living flora and fauna. And then they quote Arnie Gunnarsson. Why would anybody quote Arnie Gunnarsson with all the lies he told? 70% of the children tested are contaminated with radioactive cesium from outside the prefectures. Fukushima Daiichi worker, I believe the country would be evacuated if number 4 fuel pool collapse. There should be hundreds of thousands of people working furiously every day. That's one of the very, very few true statements I've ever heard. At Chernobyl, they went out and conscripted at gunpoint 900,000 people. 900,000. At Fukushima, they went after all the homeless, the destitute, the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language. So, does reactor 4 to your left look like it's destroyed? And many people, including David Suzuki, had said you should evacuate Japan and the west coast of the northern hemisphere, which was an accurate portrayal of this event. In Tokyo, 29 million atoms per square meter, but at the nuclear meltdown, everything is hunky-dory. High concentrations of hot particles covering America and Canada, but if you're at the nuclear meltdown, everything's perfect. So many studies of the radioactive fallout actually documented. Radiation forecasts in Japan kept secret to avoid panic in the whole of society, which is worldwide. This is only 20 days of radioactive fallout. This is France's model based on, I think, on 16 days of radioactive, or 16 days after the tsunami. It's basically 6 days of radioactive fallout. Yeah. This is the 26th of March. It happened on the 11th, right? So this is 15 days later. Radiation covering the entire planet. This is the French government study, which was showing 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per square meter or cubic meter of air, covering the entire planet. And it never stops coming out. It doesn't stop right there, because the model stopped. That doesn't mean the radioactive fallout just stopped coming out and just turned to fairy dust the next day or something. Why ain't the world acting appropriately? Fukushima released so great that radioactive aerosols in Washington were up 100,000 times normal. They actually revised it with another study of 450,000 times above detection levels for the xenon-133, which is a brutal isotope. And if you got, and this was the plume model, and purple is when you burn potassium. That's how evil this industry actually is. They use purple. And of course, this is really early, right? You're not even up to 1 month. Here's another study. That's 19 days right here of radioactive fallout. Authorities hid the radioactive plume forecast to avoid people being able to protect themselves. Former Japan official, unstoppable contamination of the Pacific Ocean is menacing the United States West Coast. Fukushima now is undeniably a global security issue. Waves of radiation will be 10 times more than the entire world's nuclear tests combined. It was way worse than that. It was thousands and thousands of times worse. Radiation forecasts withheld by the government, releasing it would cause unnecessary panic. Now, like the reason you have North America and Canada hundreds of sirens within 10 miles of a nuclear disease site is so you can panic and get the frig out of the way, right? And if you live there, then you're complacent. You shouldn't be there anyway because you can't contain them. I couldn't tell the truth about Fukushima. Shocking revelation kept secret from the public. Nuclear scientists have not trusted information from the beginning. The worst scenario I predicted has happened, which is, like, there's not a nuclear scientist on the entire planet that looked at that and said the fuel pools are intact and the reactor cores are intact. There's not one on the entire planet. And the disconnect in people is just unbelievable. I can't, because we can't come up with solutions. We can't come up with, have a future without acknowledging what happened and the severity and the horror of it. Bear with me, my apologies. Historical crisis along the U.S. West Coast, 2016. Extinction threat for salmon, sardines, squid, sea urchins, kelp. And this is what I was reporting. These statements are based on my research. I was on the ocean 4 to 5 months a year for 6 years without coming home. And I was reporting whenever I got into ports to get fuel and groceries. I would get on radio shows or I would get out little videos and we would do a tally, right? Iodine-131 in Pennsylvania rainwater samples of 3,300 above, 3,300% above the federal drinking water standards. Well, like, the standards are artificially inflated. They increased the standards after Fukushima right away, right, to 1,200 counts per minute. That's acceptable. Before that, it was just like 20 becquerels or something. But you can't, like, if you got iodine 131, you got 10 times more iodine 132 and 30 times more iodine 133 and 31 times more iodine 129, for instance. It doesn't stop there. They know that. And by the way, the iodine 132, 133 are actually 9 times more efficient at ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands of the birds and the insects and the mammals and children than the incredibly effective 131 is. But it's going to be saturated. If it's saturated with that, then it's saturated with uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, the strontiums, and everything else. Is iodine 131 killing babies in Philadelphia? Well, if it's not, it's probably the uranium and plutonium and the americium, the neptunium, the strontium is. How much information do you want? I got it. I'll show it to you. I won't sleep for the next 4 days if that's what it takes to convince you. Because I got it. That's the problem. How much do you need before you realize you need to fight too? Or at least stand tall? You got nothing to lose by fighting back. You got everything to lose by not fighting back. You have everything to lose by not fighting back. The only way you can have a future is if you fight back. I really wish you would, so I can take a fucking break. That's my dream. Because other people will fight back. That way I can take a day off. That's a hopeless dream on top of that. But every day I hope, right? Every day I cross my fingers. Today's the day. Today's the day. Fukushima nuclear fuel with 500 trillion atoms a kilogram in Tokyo. But if you're at the nuclear meltdown site and you drop dead, there's no way radiation could be a contributing factor, let alone the main factor. The whole world is completely sheepled, eh? Well, I mean, the regulars that come here, they're the most educated people on the friggin' planet on this topic. Bless your hearts, every one of you. Official admits a deadly Fukushima meltdown cover-up. TEPCO president, we lied about the meltdowns. Haha, my bad. It was a cover-up. It's a grave issue. It's an unprecedented nuclear disaster. It's as bad as it gets. It's an unpardonable breach of trust. They were like, haha, you got us. Too bad. We don't care anymore. Lady Gaga is going to be on TV tomorrow night, honey. We should put that on the TiVo so we can watch it. Over 60 million Japanese irradiated by Fukushima. 50,000 square miles highly contaminated. But if you're at the nuclear meltdown site, everything's good. Oh no, the family doesn't want us talking about how he died. We respect her. Can you imagine to be a journalist and put that out there, that kind of lie? And then tell your friends you're a journalist and look yourself in the mirror and pretend you're important. You gotta be some sick, twisted people to do that one. Like, how do you get that evil? How does that actually work? How do you, like, I gotta work in the nuclear industry because there's easy money. All I gotta do is lie to people. You can live a happy life, big beautiful house, fancy cars. cocktail parties, living good. All you do is stab everybody and everything in the back. They recruit them in the universities, right? They got their eye out for the psychopaths, for the ambitious monsters, and say, well, let's get him in the nuclear industry or get her in the nuclear industry. They're actual monsters. They're perfect. Because that's the only people they're going to hire anyway, let's face it. And now they're inbreeding with their own type, and that current generation, the entitled lad, is in charge. Do you think there's a better route down the road going to happen magically without fighting back? Without educating? Not necessarily fighting back, educating the population. Anyway, I'm not going to do this all night. That's pretty good. I had a bunch of pictures and videos from the weekend, but I don't know if I got what it takes to show them. I'm burnt out. I haven't stopped all weekend. I just haven't stopped all weekend, right? So I'm so tired. It's all good. I can hear some. Oh, let me adjust all that. Let me play some of it, I suppose. I have to put the headphones on for that one. Let's play some videos from the weekend. We're out on the research expeditions the weekend. And I can hear some birds, a couple of birds. I've been on the trail. I forgot to import the drone, sorry. For quite a while. I'm probably going to turn back at some point up here, not very far. Because you can tell that we're gonna get. I don't think I'm going to escape the rain. Yeah, I got caught in the rain yesterday. Saturday, they're calling for torrential downpours. But I'm going to launch the drone and have a look at that bog kind of little pond over here. I can't tell. And I launched the drone, but I didn't transfer the footage. I'm so burnt out today. I do this every weekend. Like I do 5 shows a week if I can. If not, it's because I'm busy doing this stuff. And I haven't had any time off for over a decade. But like say in the last 3 months, I haven't. Every weekend I'm full tilt, and I do everything myself, right? And so I have to do everything's breaking down all the time. But we have a pretty good operation to keep it running. And thank goodness, right? We made it this far where we have that type of operation where we can do most of the repairs, or if not all the repairs ourselves for the majority of the times. We do extreme repairs on top of that. But I was getting in the shower, and I looked down, and I realized, to my actual horror today, that I'm just covered in bruises everywhere. So because you gotta get the bruises, is stale, dead blood, right? It's gotta move out of you eventually, see? And so that zaps your energy too. And like whenever I go out and I'm working, I got 2 sets of knee pads, so I always and they're decent knee pads. I really gotta get, because I have to wear them all the time, right? But I gotta get, there's a good pair they're about $70, and they connect your upper leg too, and they won't twist on you and everything else, but they're meant to wear all day long, right? I'm actually gonna have to break down at some point. In fact, that's what I'll do when I raise the next bit of money, is buy something that doesn't kill me. I was hearing noises there today. I forgot. Sounds like it's overheating in here. Yeah, there's a bunch of kids came past. Sounds like it's overheating. Anyway, this is the pond I was trying to find. You can't see it probably. I can't see it either. And it's pretty windy. I think it's called 9 Mile Pan, or 9 Island Pan. Yeah, 9. I was trying to find a launch for the I'm going to have to go back because I can't find it by truck. There's a lot of steam when I came in here. I stopped. I just fired it up that time, but it's not steaming, so because I'm not traveling very fast. And let me just talk about that for a second. When I pulled up here originally, I shut the engine off because I was going to walk down towards the shoreline, and I can hear this. I did smell the steam. I seen a little bit of it, and then I walked away. Then I walked back, and I looked underneath it, and I can just hear it bubbling over. And because this is water cooled, right? So what I got to do is tomorrow morning. The first thing is I got to check the radiator to see what's going on there. But then what happened was I was getting a code. It was 119 or something. So I got to look it up and see what's going on. And maybe the thermostat is getting stuck or something. There shouldn't be a hard repair. I know for a fact it's not going to be a hard repair because I've done stuff like that. I just fired it up that time, but it's not steaming, so because I'm not traveling very fast. Yeah, we've seen 2 birds today. Total of 5 birds yesterday, and there's no spiders whatsoever. Because you check the spiders' webs for the species in the area. There's no spiders, nothing. And I checked the bus. There was no spider webs in the bus either, because we're finding them on man-made structures, but we're not finding them in the woods, right? And that was yesterday. And that was my main... I was looking for a launch point. I was looking for 9 Mile Pan. I went the day before with the truck. I couldn't find a place. There was a couple of spots that looked pretty good. And I'm sorry, on the motorcycle. And yesterday I was on the quad. But the day before I was on the motorcycle, because you're on the highways, so we're out scouting. And so I'm going to have to do a lot more quad too. And I'm going to have to deflate the Zodiac. I'm going to lug everything to my site. And I'm going to tow the Zodiac into some of these ponds on the trails so I can get samples. We're getting there, but what a struggle, to do something good. That's the problem with trying to be a good person, is it's such a struggle. Okay, I'm going to head back. I don't know, 14 kilometers or something like that. A total 20 kilometers one way, 20 back yesterday. And at 3-4 maybe I'll pop the drone up, I'm not sure. And just get a little boo at this so I can look at it later at least. And there's a spot up right here where I was right alongside the pond. I would have got a better look. I don't know if there's any metal here I can cannibalize. Come back with the trailer and get some decent metal. I can probably pull that bumper off. That's good metal right there. I got a feeling that's not going to come off. I got a big need now for metal. I need to get 2 big chunks for the back of both trailers, so 2 foot each for the back of the trailers, and cut it on an angle of 45, weld it on, and then I can just drive the quads straight on, rather than always have to have the ramps, because when you got the ramps are very awkward, and then you got to have locks to lock them down, and if someone steals it, you can't get on the trailer. And the idea was maybe cannibalize, just grab these. I think about going back and bring the generator and some tools, air tools, and grab those, because I can get at them, right? And then I can chop them up to use them for other stuff. I wouldn't mind having those springs. So let's go on to the next one here.
This was the pond. I can't find a spot to launch the boat. I don't think this is Nine Island Pond, but I'll check the maps when I go home.
Which, of course, I didn't. I'm too burnt out. That's okay, though. I'm getting there.
Whoa, we got a bird?
Just flew right
Sweet.
past me.
Whoa, we got
There
a
he
bird?
is. Oh, yeah. I go backwards. So I think I've seen 5 or 6 birds. That's backwards. I come in. He sees me and he cuts right past me. Oh. He could have been a robin. It's hard to tell, eh? He's real pretty. Bless his heart.
Oh, we got a bird? Sweet. I don't know if you got that, but that was pretty cool. I think that's 4 birds this morning. By the time I get back, I'm guessing it's close to 20 kilometers.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'm back. We're back. And so with these locks, I can just leave the ramp.
You see how big the ramp awkward is? It folds up into 3 pieces and then I slide it up underneath it. And you got to use 2 ratchets to strap it down. And it'd be nicer if I just had like a 2-foot extension pointed down and planked it, and then I can just drive right on. That's my take on that. That's what I'll end up doing.
Okay, I'm on my way home.
And look how good those E-tracks are, right? Where you can just snap on anywhere. They save you so much headache. And even got the seat, because I learned a long time ago. Always strap your seat on or take it off with you. But don't leave your seat on the bike, because if you lose your seat, it's very awkward until you get a seat. And that battery, I added acid to that battery from 2 other batteries, and then I reconditioned it. So I charged it up, then I ran it through the drainage, reconditioned it, charged it, desulfuring it, and then I done the same thing again the next day when I came back. That's working out really good. Really happy with that.
We're strapped down.
And I painted them today black. Because they're brand new, right? So you wouldn't expect them to rush that fast. My goodness.
I really like the rail.
And I'm assuming that's because of the welding I was doing, right? Changed the electrolysis.
And that's for the ramp, and this one is for the seat.
Look how good
just so
those
the seat
things
can't
are.
fly away. You'll always see like...
Because I tore one of the lights off last week. And so I'm using my magnetic lights. They're really good. They'll stick to the galvanized, right?
advertising where people are worried about
it's all
their
working
seat.
out really
Or
good.
not
We're
worried about, but
finally-
lost their seat.
Finally getting it good.
So I got to replace that light.
So I tore off that light with the boat a few days back. And so I'm out on the motorcycle for 3 days or something, all over the place, trying to find places. I only got a few to launch the boats. But then I was like, we haven't had the quad out since last year, because I had 3 heart attacks and got 7 stents put in, right? And then I was like, shit, get the quad out and start that too. Because we're looking for insects, in particular birds, and we want to get water samples. And the idea is also to rig up a rope, maybe a chain even, under the drone and put the sample bottles on that. I can fly the drone out a couple of kilometers away if I want to, and dip down, take a sample and fly it back and put a cap on it, right? And come back and stick it under the microscope. That's the basic plan anyway. Well, it's good to have the whole operation back up and running. I know that much. It makes me happy. And we got all the kinks out of the trailer. Everything is working great. The winch is working great. All the lights are working, including, no, not all of them. We broke a few, but we have other ways of compensating. That's how we. Next time I get into the city, I'll pick up replacement lights for the back. But anyway, my heart goes out to the victims, loved ones, that they probably never know what happened to them, that they're even missing, because I can guarantee you the worker was the homeless or destitute or a victim of society. There is no family. And TEPCO is not going to go looking for their family. And that's because it didn't show up in any of the normal medias. The media just showed up as media we've never used before. And we cover what? I don't know how much each year. Stories. It's insane how much we can cover in a week sometimes. But remember, in Nami, which is 7 kilometers away, highly radioactive, difficult to return zone. This was this year, 2024, May 23rd. This was last month. This was less than a month ago. 3 weeks ago, right? But if you're at the ground zero, then there's no adverse side effects. All right, so we'll call it a night, I suppose. Let's get some... Here's some music for the outro. See everybody tomorrow night. The weather breaks tomorrow. So tomorrow, summer starts. Suppose you get the middle of the week is going to be really hot. Everything else. So now's the time to get out there and start researching. Right? We got a ridiculous amount of work to do, and then. How do we keep this operation moving forward, right? That's the important question, because these things don't run on their own. So we have to keep these shows each night if possible. So you go out and work all day and then you got to put a show together for that night to come out and tell the story. It's a lot of work. I'm proud to have the opportunity to do it. It's a brutal amount of work. They're out to get you. I mean, the last video we covered a story. This is the Great Lakes, the biggest freshwater aquifer on the entire planet, and the coast, the shorelines are all nuclear sites and nuclear dumps. That doesn't frighten the living daylights out of you. You're not realistic. You're not being realistic. You need to get educated. Go back and watch this whole video. I know it's a difficult subject, and I apologize for that, but I didn't start this fight, okay? And if you're here, it's because this industry, the nuclear chose you. Because that was your calling, right? You have a great night. Have a great day tomorrow. I'll be on the trails again tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll be on the ocean or out on freshwater ponds or be on the quad. But we'll be out looking for species again tomorrow. I think I counted 6 birds total yesterday. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. See everybody tomorrow night. I'll be a bit better coordinated. My apologies. I'll see you soon.